Good evening. It's late, and that probably means I have less competition. I don't. It could mean that. I have no idea when prime time is on YouTube. But my name is JCIngle, and I drop in fairly randomly to film these live streams. They're basically times that I spend fleshing out my introduction to video, an audio podcast, or something like that. But tonight I'm going to actually film a couple takes, and I'm actually going to film a vlog, which is something unique. And then what I'll do is eventually post that on Pathos, where I'm an evangelical columnist, and I will write it out a bit and put that, make that available in a different form. So tonight, I'm just going to jump right in, and you can watch if you like, and just share however you like. But tonight, I'm going to dive into an area that I'm sure a lot of people are concerned about. So I'll get started. Good evening. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking to you tonight about something that affects just about everybody who becomes a parent. And if you haven't become a parent yet, I'm sure it affected you when you were a child. And that is parent-child shared reading times and how to navigate those times. In our particular family, we have a rich heritage of reading on both sides of the family, my wife and I, and we also have committed to homeschooling. And so this is one of those areas that is top priority for us in a lot of ways, our literacy level of our children and how they're advancing through different stages. So I'm going to share with you basically 5 practices that we use that are crucial for us. Now, these are not documented, but you can find a lot of great documents out there if you like, journal articles and things like that, that will actually share with you a lot more from an academic standpoint. But tonight I'll just share with you about 5 that have worked for us over time. We've homeschooled all of our children. Our oldest is 17. Our youngest is 6. So it'll be a good opportunity for us just to pass along some information that's worked for us over time. So the first of the 5 is basically assessing kind of the reading level. And I'm talking about preschool, before you actually get them into formal reading, kindergarten, first grade, second grade. You'll be using curriculum for that if you homeschool or if you put them in public schools. So those times are crucial. You want to set your children up for success in the academic world, and you want to give them kind of their first little bit of command of language. And so we start, all of us, probably with picture books, great picture books. I mean, if you get to the point where you're reading Dr. Seuss, your kid is just toying with language and having fun, and that's great. Then we progress kind of into chapter books, and chapter books are tremendous. And you need to know kind of what type of chapter books you want to read, what type of chapter books are going to be beneficial for your children, whether they're going to be written recently, and whether or not they're going to be written kind of as modern classic children's books. And we read a lot of those modern classics. And what I mean by that is that they've come down to us, but it's been maybe 2 or 3 generations. So they could have been written last century. They could have been written early last century. And so when you're assessing kind of what books you want to read, you want to take time to make sure that their reading level is appropriate. Something that was written in England in 1920 for children may have been something children could have read there at that time, but you'll probably have to do a lot of translation basically on the fly. So you're assessing for reading level. And for us, that has been a key priority. And we've introduced chapter books with higher levels as we just progress over time. So the second thing, after you kind of get the reading level growing and the child kind of growing in their understanding and what they can actually handle, then you want to, of course, work with consistency and time. What does it mean to have a consistent time a day, possibly, when they can be, when things can be read to them? And what type of books do you want to read at different times of the day? So maybe it's easy for you to pick a time. It might just be the only time that's available, day or night. It might be before you go to work, or it might be after you come home, or it might be in the evening after dinner, whatever time is more convenient for you. Or maybe you just want to bulk up on the weekend, pick Saturday or Sunday and read 2 or 3 extra chapters and have just an hour or so of reading time where you can just sit down and enjoy time together. So set a time though, and the consistency of that time actually matters to the child as they're looking forward to that particular reading each day or each week, and make sure that that consistency is something that they can hold on to and they can bank on. And the other thing I just want to caution you about with time is the type of book that you read. I'll be talking about Narnia a little bit, but I've also read The Hobbit to our children, and J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. They were of a different era, and children in that time probably understood war, for instance, a lot more than we do in our time, in our day and age. And so these stories are great stories that we can draw a lot from, but there is a lot of war in them. And so it may be good to consider books like that that are still good for children, setting the time earlier in the day rather than late at night, right before they go to bed. You certainly don't want to arouse and awaken their imagination to battle scenes of some sort right before they go to sleep. So you want to make sure that you keep those type of factors in mind as well when you're picking a time. So consistency and time, those would be basically the second major key that we have. The third one would be the setting. The setting is very important, and I found it more so for me than possibly my wife, Crystal. Crystal homeschools them, and she's just basically fluid. They can set up shop wherever they want to in the house, and they can get a lot of work done. For me, I've found it's helpful for me and whatever child I'm dealing with to kind of pick a setting and environment that's going to be somewhat the same each time, because I am not as gifted as she is in dealing with children. So I want to be able to keep their attention. And to be able to do that, I want the setting to be similar so they're used to it. And also in that particular time frame while they're listening to the book, sometimes it's good to allow them to have some sort of activity that they're doing, whether or not they're coloring or whether or not they're drawing. And sometimes I encourage them to draw the characters from the book as their imagination allows, or whether or not they're playing with Legos. Some of my children like to play with Legos. This particular book here is a little notebook, and we've gone frontwards and backwards through this. You probably won't be able to see everything with the screen, but I mean, we've gone throughout this book, page cover to cover, back and then back again on the back side of each sheet, drawing different things as we've been working through this Narnia series the last time. And I'll talk about that here in a minute. But it's also been a tool for me. When you're going to chapter books, you don't have as many pictures. And so it's good to draw little stick figures or whatever to show what's going on in that scene every once in a while, if it's a little bit difficult for them to wrap their mind around. So using a tool like that is great. But the main idea is that you want to fuel the imagination, and you definitely don't want to distract the imagination. So the setting and the attention, those things are important as the third key. The fourth key is the series. This series is a great idea, and there are many great series out there. I mean, in recent history, they're probably one of the most popular has been Lemony Snicket, and then there are others as well that I'm sure that you're aware of, and that are just pop culture series that have come along. Now, for me and my family, we have read the Chronicles of Narnia. Now, the Chronicles of Narnia is a 7-book series. It was written by C.S. Lewis. And it's amazing to me how someone who was trained and received his education from Oxford University was able to write the Chronicles of Narnia for children when he wrote one of the best philosophical Christian books of all time, highly respected in philosophy and in theology, and that is Mere Christianity. If you've ever read Mere Christianity, it's just amazing to see that that same man could bridge the gap between Mere Christianity and the Chronicles of Narnia and speak to children. And this is a phenomenal series. One of the reasons that makes it different even than Tolkien's writings is that Tolkien probably used a lot of imagery that was Christian, but C.S. Lewis intentionally wrote allegory. So this is Christian allegory. And if you want to have take time to work through a series that would be beneficial for your children, this would be one to consider. Now, before you jump into a series, I just want to say it's great to test out what reading level your child actually is. And you could do that through a variety of books. My wife just gave me a list of 10 books that she read to our son, our youngest son, before I started the Narnia series. And we were testing the waters, so to speak. I personally read to him the classic Winnie the Pooh book. I read this book to him before we actually went into Narnia. And one of the reasons was to test my ability to get through a bigger chapter, and also to test my ability to maintain an English accent through a whole book. And this is a phenomenal book for that. It's also not far off from Narnia when it comes to the language and the time frame. And so you have a little bit of different English being used over there across the pond, so to speak. And this was a good test for me as well as for my son. So we read through the Winnie the Pooh book. And so it's good to test and see where the kids are at. And we started Narnia, and by the time we started the series, he was ready for it. And so I just wanted to mention that if you do decide to start a series, make sure you're testing books that are at that level before you make the commitment, because it is a commitment, and you want to be able to plow through it and to work through it with your child the best that you can. So I'm going to look at a couple other things real quick, but that is, so first would be the reading level. Secondly, the consistency in time. Third, the setting. Fourth, the series. If you want to get into a series, it's great. It's just development of characters over time. It's wonderful for kids to get these stories, these series fleshed out, and to actually get more and more of the storyline going. It helps them with the consistency of learning. And then fifth, I would have to say, is celebration. Celebrate what you're doing. In this particular case, Narnia has 3 movies that were released by Walt Disney and by Walden Media. And what we did was we just read the books. And when that particular movie came up with the book, we would watch the movie after we had completed the book. And now that's really a cliffhanger for kids. When you say, we're going to wait until we finish The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is the second book, before we watch the first movie. And so that was just, that was a great teaser for them, actually kept things going, and kept the interest level high. And the movies, of course, can never capture everything that's in a child's mind when it comes to imagination, but they can certainly supplement it. And Disney did a great job in Walden Media with these particular movies. And so I would highly recommend something like that. There are many books and series out there that actually have movies that go along with them. Another reward, you might want to use, well, if you're celebrating, you might want to use rewards. So again, when I mean rewards, I mean, it can mean anything. And one thing that is just a kind of a key, easy thing that you can do is, if you're reading during the day and you have some extra time and the child is behaving well, why not read 2 chapters? Why not offer a second chapter and say, because you've been great today, I'm going to read another chapter? And just simple things like that can actually go a long way to keep the child engaged and involved in the particular book. Then the third thing that I think is key that we may not think about, but I think we have to be intentional about, and that is the reward of conversation. So that means making room for conversation, making room actually as you're reading the book and as you're reading the chapter. Now, some kids will ask questions every single paragraph or every single sentence, and you might have to say, wait till the end of the page or something like that. But nonetheless, taking time to explain, making sure they understand the concepts, and making sure the conversation is happening. Now with Narnia, if you're looking for a book with a Christian perspective, you'll have ample opportunity for Christian conversation, and in some ways you'll be discipling your child. If you can explain the allegories and dig a little bit deeper and do a little bit of homework on your own, you have just a wonderful opportunity to share with your child some great basics of the Christian faith. So conversation is another part of celebration. And then for us personally with Narnia, we've done something that I've always loved, and that is we never end on the second to the last chapter. It's a rule that some days we will read 3, sometimes we'll read the last 3 chapters or something, but we never just end on the second to the last. We never read the second to the last and then the next day just read the last chapter. We always read at least the last 2 chapters of the book. And my wife, Crystal, has a homemade hot chocolate recipe, and I'm sure you can find one on Pinterest. And she will make up some homemade hot chocolate, you know, the kind with whole milk and all that. And everybody in the family will kind of gather around and we'll just enjoy a couple chapters and talk about the book. And so that is always a great reward. And one of the reasons why I'm sharing this now is because last night we did that. It's Monday night. So last night on Sunday night, we finished the entire series with my 6-year-old, and we had worked through all 7 of the books. And so last night, the whole family was here and we shared hot chocolate and they all chatted. My older 2 brothers, or older 2 boys, sorry, have actually gone through the books. My second son hasn't read the last book, or I haven't read it to him yet. So he sat in with us on this last book as we read through. So they were all there last night, and we just enjoyed a celebration as we talked about Narnia and what it meant and how wonderful it was. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I have a Meet Jared page on my Patheos, and I'll provide the link to that. And I'll also provide the 10 books, the 10 titles that my wife mentioned. And hopefully you'll be able to look some of those up. I imagine they are wonderful. I recognize some of them, but of course she is our homeschool teacher, and so she studies out children's classic books. And I'll give you that 10 book list and links where you can purchase those on Amazon if you like. So I hope you have a great evening, and I hope this has been beneficial for you. All right, I think that was actually all I'm going to do. I'm going to stop the stream, and I believe that's a 1 take. And hopefully it's something that can be of worth to you all. So again, you can contact me anytime if you like. The Meet Jared link is for Patheos. So if you go to Patheos, patheos.com/blogs/JaredIngle, JaredIngle, you'll find me. You'll see the Meet Jared tab up there where you can get more information about me, what I do. I'm a marriage and family therapist under supervision. I have a degree in that. And I also have another graduate degree, 2 graduate degrees, 1 in theology as well. And so I love to blend things like this and offer some perspective that is just more integrated. So if you have any questions, again, feel free to reach out. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week.